their lives and the lives of others. But before we hear a few of those stories of his love, of his dedication, of his compassion, of his generosity, we are also sitting here in these holy walls because of the faith Jim had that shaped his being, informed his decisions, and transformed his life. Those who may not be familiar with the text from the story from the Gospel of John, let me give you it now. Jesus knows that Judas is in the process of betraying him. He knows he has only a few hours left before he is crucified, and that the disciples will soon be in grief. Knowing his disciples will soon be filled with sadness, knowing they will be fearful, knowing they will feel lost and confused and abandoned, Jesus tries to prepare them for this eventuality. So on the night in which he was betrayed, he told them, love one another. He then demonstrated what he wanted them to do, serve one another. And he did this by putting a towel around his waist and kneeling and washing his disciples' feet. He told them the sad news that he would soon die. But he also told them something else. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Jesus said, with all that will be happening soon in your lives, I know that you will be plunged into darkness. I know that you will be thrown into chaos, but do not let your hearts be troubled. Jesus told them while he was gone that he would go and prepare a place for them. A place not made with hands, but eternal in the heavens. And he wanted them to be with him forever, and he would not let death, even death, get in the way of that. So he was going to prepare a place for them. And he knew the grief they would be experiencing, so he wanted to give them a message of hope. He wanted them to know he was not abandoning them. I know because you have love in your hearts, you will grieve, but don't let your hearts be troubled. Because Jesus cared so deeply for his disciples, he prepared for their needs before they even knew they needed it. What the disciples and we would eventually discover is because of Jesus, we have reason to hope. Because death was not the end of the story. Jesus' resurrection brought a return of hope to the disciples. It brought a hope so deep and so profound they were able to confront the trials and the tribulations of life moving forward. The Holy Spirit brought a hope and a strength that would carry them through all the future challenges. And this is the hope that Jim had. We all can have this hope. Those who trust in God hope because God has not forgotten us. We have hope because God has not abandoned us. We have hope because the Good Shepherd will not leave us lost in the wilderness, but will seek us out and carry us home. We have hope because God is always with us and will remain with us. We have hope because God will lead us through our tribulations. We have hope because God has prepared ahead of time for our needs. We have hope because death doesn't have the final say. We have hope that even amid our grief, we can move forward because we know the story is not yet complete. Yes, we grieve. Because if you are a person that has love in your heart, then you will grieve when you feel separated from that love. And that grief is sometimes difficult to navigate, and we will have to navigate it for the remainder of our lives. But we do not grieve as a people without hope. We grieve with a people of hope. So when we hear Jesus say, let not your hearts be troubled, we do not hear that coming from someone saying something that they think we need to hear. We do not hear them coming from someone who has pie in the sky idealism. We do not hear them coming from someone who really doesn't know what we're feeling and what we're experiencing right now. Instead, we hear them from someone who really knows, really cares, who has walked in our shoes and will walk with us in our time of grief and lead us forward. Jesus says, let not your hearts be troubled. Trust me. I got this. Better still, I got you. I love you. I will be with you. I've prepared a place for you, as God has done for Jim. So, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. And may God's grace and love fill you all with Jim's hope. Amen. Our first tribute speaker is Governor J.B. Pritzker. Governor Jim Edgar believed that governors, regardless of party, should support one another in service of people. He often said the most important job of any governor was to pass a responsible budget, protect the most vulnerable, and create opportunity for all. He would be deeply honored to see friend, former Governor Pat Quinn, here with us today, and grateful that Governor Pritzker accepted Brenda Edgar's invitation to speak. Before his passing, Jim specifically asked JB to offer remarks at his funeral. He believed it was important to show that bipartisanship still matters, that it still lives in Illinois and in America. Governor Pritzker understood early on what made Jim Edgar special, a rare statesman who put people before party, principles before politics, and a long-term future of Illinois ahead of short-term gains. That's why after his election, Governor Pritzker asked Jim Edgar, a Republican with decades of experience and a 78% approval rating, to chair his transition team. He knew there was no better example of public service done right. Today, as we honor Governor Edgar's legacy, it's fitting we hear from someone who saw him not just as a predecessor, but as a mentor and model of true leadership. Please welcome Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Well, good morning. We gather together today to mourn the loss of a husband, a father, a grandfather, a mentor, and a friend, and also to celebrate the life of a great man and a leader whose legacy of service and dedication to the people of Illinois has imprinted on us all. In the last few days, I've reflected on what I think everyone should know about Jim Edgar. But it all boils down to this. He's good people. You can see that in his family, in Brenda and Brad and Elizabeth and all the grandchildren. Your love for each other, your character, is a reflection of the goodness and love that Jim carried for you in his heart. You are his living legacy, and he was so proud of you. And the people Governor Edgar surrounded himself with in his public service as a state representative, as Secretary of State, as governor, well, you're here for him today, as you were for him throughout his years in government and beyond. The loyalty, the kindness, the integrity with which you served him during and after his public service is a reflection of the loyalty, kindness, and integrity that he gave to you. You remain a team whose captain was proud of you and all that you've accomplished. And I guess you're the original Edgar Fellows. Jim Edgar was exemplary in so many ways. When I was first elected governor, I looked around for experienced mentors that I could rely upon for advice and guidance. And there are very few who have worn these shoes, who truly understand what the job entails, and whose advice I could trust. Fortunately for me and for Illinois, Governor Jim Edgar's values and judgment and service have been a model to follow. And he was willing to offer his wisdom. Even though he had health challenges, he was generous with his time and always thoughtful in his advice. In my first meeting with him, he admonished me, as was said moments ago, remember, your first and most important job is to pass a balanced budget every year. So every time we passed a balanced budget, like an excited kid to a parent, I'd say, look, I did what you said I should do. I passed a balanced budget. And then he'd say, good job, now do it again. Jim Edgar believed deeply in our individual and our collective responsibility to one another. That regardless of where we live, what we look like, or who we voted for, our foremost obligation is to serve one another. That is how he governed, and that is how he lived. As governor, Jim was a steady hand and a comforting, calming presence for our state through times of crisis. He could walk into a room of people he disagreed with, hold on to his strong views, and still listen and learn with a full heart. All of these characteristics, so inherently Illinois, made Jim a force for unity with a unique ability to bring people together despite their differences. These are lessons that I think all of us could use right now. Earnestness, honesty, unwavering loyalty to the people he served have made Jim Edgar an icon of the great state of Illinois, no matter what party you belong to. His impact is incalculable, and it changed our state for the better. As we look ahead and we chart our course for the future, the best of who we are as a state could be found in how Jim Edgar served and lived his life. It says everything about Jim that after a lifetime of faithful elected public service to Illinois, in retirement, he dedicated his seemingly unlimited energy, relentless passion, and deep commitment to the people and institutions of this state. His legacy will live on in the innumerable lives that he touched, the stronger institutions he helped to build, and in the spirit of unity that he fostered. To Brenda, to Brad, to Elizabeth, and to all the grandchildren, you will always be a first family of Illinois, and Jim's memory will forever be a blessing to us all.
Our next speaker has spent his career exemplifying the kind of leadership that transcends partisanship and puts people over politics. Former Congressman Ray LaHood, a proud Republican from Illinois, served with distinction in the U.S. House of Representatives for 14 years. Known for his integrity and fairness, he was respected by both sides of the aisle, not for how loudly he spoke, but for how well he listened. It's no surprise then when President Barack Obama, a Democrat, was looking for someone to lead the U.S. Department of Transportation, he turned to Ray LaHood. Secretary, Ray brought the same steady bipartisan approach to Washington that he had defined in his time in Congress. He focused on infrastructure and safety and innovation, not political headlines. And he earned broad respect for it. In many ways, Ray LaHood reflects the best of Governor Jim Edgar's legacy, a belief in civility over conflict, in compromise as a strength, not a weakness, and in compassion as a guiding principle of public service. Like Governor Edgar, Ray LaHood understood that good governance starts with good character. Please join me in welcoming someone who has spent a lifetime putting country before party and service before self, the Honorable Ray LaHood.
Thank you to the Edgar family for inviting me to participate. When Edgar called me and asked if I would offer a few remarks, he said I had 4 or 5 minutes. And I said, Brad, I've known your dad forever. So I'm going to take the liberty of a little more than 4 or 5 minutes. The Edgar family is an extraordinary family, and as we honor Jim Edgar today, we honor their family. We honor their service. For those of you that are in public service, you know the worst part of it is for the family. They make as many sacrifices as any public official. They're the ones that are in the background. They don't get the recognition they deserve, and they continue to support, and no one has supported Jim Edgar more than his family. Thank you for what you've done for Illinois and what you did to help make Jim Edgar, with all due respect, Governor, maybe the best governor we've ever had in Illinois. Certainly the best Republican governor, okay? Something that I told Rick Pearson of the Tribune that I really believe, I've been around politics 35 years, Jim Edgar is the gold standard for public service, for honesty, and for integrity. I first became acquainted with Governor Edgar when he was Secretary of State. I had been appointed state representative in the Quad City area before we moved back to Peoria. And he had just become Secretary of State, and I invited him to come to Moline and swear me in. And he did that, and he didn't know me from Adam's house cat, but he did it. And he became one of my mentors, and I had some very good mentors. Jim Edgar was at the top of the list, and I'll never forget that. I believe, as the governor has said, that Jim Edgar will have many legacies, but I believe his lasting legacy, when people mention the Edgar name, it will be followed by the fellows. That will be his legacy. Because there are people in this church and people all over Illinois that have benefited from the Edgar Fellows Program. Smart young people who gathered together in Champaign over the last 10 plus years to learn from respected leaders, to learn from governors, to learn from members of Congress, to learn from mayors. And what did they learn, and what did Jim Edgar want the fellows to be? A learning experience about how to listen and how to lead. The Edgar Fellows talked about integrity and honesty and transparency and how to be a very good public servant. And they learned it from others. And that 10 plus years of learning has created all over our state outstanding leaders, some of whom are here today, some who are serving as lieutenant governor or members of Congress. And it's interesting that Governor Pritzker used the term mentor in describing Jim Edgar. That will be his legacy, in my opinion. And it's so important, I think, because, to be honest, when you look at Jim Edgar's career, he had a mentor. Jim Thompson. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for being here today and honoring our friend Jim Edgar. Jim Thompson plucked Jim Edgar out of the legislature to become his legislative director. And then when there was a vacancy in the Secretary of State's office, Jim Thompson could have picked any Republican. But he picked Jim Edgar. Why? Leadership, the ability to lead, a bright young guy with great potential. And so when I tell the story of Jim Edgar, it's a story like everyone here, a story of mentoring. We've all had mentors, every one of us. We didn't get to where we are today, whatever success we've had, on our own. We did it following the leadership of others. And more than 500 people in the Edgar Fellows program benefited from the mentorship of Jim Edgar and what they learned during that week that they spent in Champaign. And so that's why I believe, for all the legacies of Jim Edgar, the Fellows will be his legacy. A legacy teaching honesty, integrity, teaching the values that all of us know are very, very important. So, again, to the Edgar family, thank you. We're so grateful for your service and your supporting Jim Edgar. The way the Fellows Program can continue is through all of those who have benefited from it. To go out and mentor someone, to find someone you work with, to encourage them, to give them the same kind of mentorship and leadership that you learned through the Edgar Fellows. That's how we will continue the long, long, rich legacy and history of Jim Edgar's service to Illinois. Rest in peace, Jim Edgar. May your memory be a blessing to all who knew and loved you.
When Jim Edgar was a senior at Eastern Illinois University in 1967, he faced a pivotal decision: pursue law school or step into the world of government. Recently married and a new father, the stakes were high. He applied both to law school and to the legislative internship in Springfield with Senate President Russell Arrington. Law school promised stability and a secure career. The internship, on the other hand, offered a front row seat to the working of state government, but no guarantee of a steady income. As fate would have it, he received an acceptance letter to law school and a telegram offering him the internship in the same week. He chose the internship, and the rest, as we say, is history. Our next speaker, Felicia Norwood, shares the same passion for both law and public service. After graduating from Yale Law School, her first role was as a Dunn Fellow in the Illinois Governor's office, working in health and human services under Governor Thompson. Coincidentally, Governor Thompson had also recognized potential in a young Jim Edgar back in 1970s. Years later, when Jim Edgar was elected governor in 1990, he saw that same spark in Felicia, a driven young woman just barely 30 who shared his deep commitment to public service. He invited her to join his administration as a part of his super cabinet, giving her a platform to lead and to grow. Felicia Norwood is a shining example of Governor Edgar's enduring legacy, his ability to recognize talent and give young professionals the chance to thrive. Today, she serves as president of the Elevance Health Government Health Benefits and sits on the board of directors at Wells Fargo and Yale University. Please join me in welcoming Felicia Norwood.
Good morning. Mrs. Edgar, Elizabeth, Brad, other members of the Edgar family, former colleagues, clergy, and all of our distinguished guests. I'm deeply honored and humbled to be speaking with you today on behalf of the governor's former staff members. And like so many of my colleagues, consider having worked for Governor Edgar one of the greatest privileges of our careers. We're gathered in sorrow today, but also in celebration and gratitude for the extraordinary life he lived, the example he set, the countless ways he gave of himself to this state and its people. I had the privilege of serving under Governor Edgar for 4 years. I left the law firm of Hopkins and Sutter after only a few years to join his administration when the governor asked me to be a part of the super cabinet. I had no idea what the super cabinet was. It was equal parts humbling, daunting, and exhilarating. And those early years shaped me profoundly. Of course, none of us had a clue of what we were signing up for as we navigated one of the greatest budget challenges that the state ever faced. But what became abundantly clear was that the people of Illinois had not only elected a skillful politician, but a true public servant, and the right man to make the tough decisions that great leadership demands, doing not what was popular, but what was right. Governor Edgar brought together a diverse team, seasoned and trusted staff from his tenure at the Secretary of State's office, and new faces like me from beyond the circle. I had never even met the governor before he offered me the job, and he never asked me what party I belonged to. He asked me whether I had a passion for service. So we worked together long hours, tackling some of the state's biggest challenges. As a team, we challenged each other, and we challenged him. Even so, amid strong personalities and sometimes stronger egos, he thrived and always put the people of Illinois first. From the governor, I learned that politics done right is about service, not about power. That you could disagree and still have respect for others within the party and on the other side of the aisle. That listening is an essential ingredient in learning. And that hearing people out, even when the answer to their request was going to be no, and we said no often, was respectful, valued, and leads to long relationships. He was in public life for all the right reasons. He cared deeply about this state, and he never lost sight of the human faces behind the decisions he made. Governor Edgar was demanding, but very fair. He pushed us to be better, and in doing so, he helped us grow. For me, it set the foundation for the work I continue to do today in healthcare, for children, families, seniors, and persons with disabilities, always with that reminder from him on my shoulder to look out for those most vulnerable. Governor Edgar's strength was always in bringing people together. He assembled one of the most racially and ethnically diverse staff and cabinet we've ever seen. There were also diverse perspectives, and notably, more women in leadership than had ever served in those roles before. He was a thoughtful, steady, measured leader who saw people and not just political parties, a kind of inspirational leadership that we all appreciated and aspired to. Governor Edgar was a man of integrity, a difference maker, and a true public servant. His legacy is not only in the policies he shaped, but the lives he touched and the leaders he mentored and developed. Those of us who had the privilege of serving under him are better for it, and Illinois is better because of him. May his memory be an example and blessing for all of us. May it continue to guide us in our work and our lives. And may it inspire us to serve with the same humility, fairness, and compassion that he embodied every day. Thank you, Governor. We're deeply grateful, forever changed, and incredibly blessed to have had you as our leader.
One of the titles Jim Edgar cherished most wasn't governor or secretary of state. It was Papa. To his 5 grandchildren, he wasn't a public figure. He was a source of love, wisdom, curiosity, and adventure. He adored each of them and poured the same care into being their grandfather, sir, as he did into serving the people of Illinois. Jim came from humble beginnings in Charleston, but he made it his mission to show his grandchildren just how big the world could be, how much of it was within their reach. Whether it was trips to Springfield, to Washington, D.C., or to the far corners of the globe, Papa wasn't just taking them on vacation. He was opening their eyes to the opportunity, to public service, and to the idea that their lives could be anything they dreamed if they were grounded in purpose and hard work. He was proud of all 5 of his grandchildren, Dakota, Callie, Ellie, Jake, and Cecilia. And today, 3 of them. Please welcome Dakota, Callie, and Jake.
On behalf of our entire family, but especially the grandchildren, myself, Dakota, Callie, Ellie, and Cece, thank you all for being here today to celebrate the life of our grandfather. Over the past few days especially, we've heard a lot from you all and others about what he meant to you as a leader, a colleague, or a dedicated friend. But to us, he was Papa Jim. Or as he first suggested we call him, Grandfather Sir. While the title didn't quite stick, the memory of his sense of humor certainly did. One of the greatest gifts our grandfather gave us was his love of learning. He set an extraordinary example of what it means to be a lifelong learner, whether through his endless collection of books, his history lessons, or his stamp collection. Callie and I both remember spending hours with him, paging through stamps, or admiring his first edition books. He assured us they might be worth something someday, but we knew the real value was the stories they carried and the chances to learn from him. He was also deeply invested in our education and each of our unique interests. As my cousin Ellie reflected, any time Papa and I talked on the phone, it was brief and to the point, unless we were talking about our horses. It was fun to share the love of our animals together. Ellie also said, he always asked me how classes were going and encouraged me to keep learning. He often told me he was proud of my accomplishments in school and encouraged me to pursue my master's degree as a nurse practitioner. Last Thanksgiving, he was thrilled to hear about how passionate my sister Cece is about her studies at the University of Puget Sound. Cece said he was especially excited to hear that I'm going to be studying abroad in Chile. He was impressed with the history that I knew about the country, and during their conversation, he was already starting to think about how he might be able to come visit. Cece will be thinking of him during her time abroad. Whenever we saw him, we loved taking our turns in the hot seat, answering his line of questions about our lives. And no matter what was happening around him in those conversations, he had an incredible ability to make you feel like the most important person in the world. Our grandfather attended every graduation, award ceremony, dance recital, and sporting event. And it was that steady support that shaped us into who we are today.
A man of many passions, he held a few very dear to his heart: horses, hiking, and hot food. You really cannot talk about our grandfather without talking about his love of food. His famous saying was, "You never know what your next meal will be, so you might as well enjoy the one in front of you." While most people eat to live, Papa lived to eat. A trip to the movies usually meant we were very early and typically seeing a movie that involved a horse, but it always meant popcorn. He was on the lifelong pursuit of the perfect piece of chocolate cake, applying a bit of pressure to any family member who drew the duty of preparing said cake at the family gathering. We will all cherish the many meals that we had together at one of his favorite chain restaurants, but anyone who has shared a meal with my grandfather knows how particular he might be, especially when it came to the temperature of his food. One of our favorite grandfather sir moments occurred after sending back a meatball sub with the complaint that it was lukewarm at best. Our very patient waitress warned him that sending the sandwich back through the oven might make it a little bit crispy, maybe even burnt. But prioritizing hot food, he assured her, "That'll be fine, so long as the sandwich is hot." Once the sandwich had arrived back at our table, he exclaimed, "Ah, this sandwich is burnt!" Before he could flag her down to provide further instructions, I told him, "Oh, no. She warned you. You've got to eat it now." And for our sake, he did. As serious as he was about the quality of his meals, he was always a very good sport when we would give him a hard time about the antics that accompanied his orders. Papa loved adventure and sparked that same curiosity in each of us, whether that meant showing us around Washington, D.C. when we turned 12, trips abroad, or even just simply going to catch your favorite college football team play in a bowl game. He was always up for the adventure. One of my favorite adventures with Papa was hiking an active volcano in Guatemala. As the chaperone to me and my good childhood friend, we departed on an hour-long bus ride with a group full of strangers to take on the volcano. The entire group did their best to keep up with Papa as he'd sprinted up the mountain, only pausing to roast marshmallows on the running lava once we'd reached the summit. While I may have burnt my legs from the heat, it was a memory I'll never forget. Even in his everyday routine, Papa was able to find joy in adventure. Specifically, Papa loved taking daily walks and hikes with the family dogs. We all cherished being invited to these longer than bargained for hikes we'd take with Papa and the dogs through the mountains of Colorado. Our family often jokes that we would all like to come back in our next life as one of Jim Edgar's dogs. Although they were never well behaved, he loved them fiercely. We can still hear Papa's voice ringing out, "Emmy, Daisy, Buddy, Abe," whenever they would act out. And even though they got him into some seriously sticky situations, he loved his dogs almost as he loved us, as much as he loved us, his family.
Perhaps the best example that our Papa Jim set for us, though, was how to be a good partner. Us grandkids have been reflecting on how special it's been to hear about his political career and the common sentiment that he was best known for his ability to work with people regardless of their parties or beliefs. We've been so moved in learning all about his legacy that he leaves behind in Illinois. But to us, his greatest partnership was that with his wife and our Grandma Brenda. Their commitment to each other was rare, and we were so grateful that they made every effort to spend time in Colorado so that they could see us grow up and be a major part of each of our lives. Although we were heartbroken by this loss, we were blessed to get so many years with our incredible grandfather, and will forever carry the lessons that he taught us. To stay curious about the world, but remember that there is always more to learn. To savor every meal and share it with good company. And to show up for those that you love consistently and with compassion. We ask that you join us in honoring our grandfather in the coming days by carving out time to read a good book, by treating yourself to a slice of chocolate cake, and by reminding those in your life just how much they mean to you. Here we go. Papa, we love you so much. We miss you already.
Our last speakers knew Jim Edgar not as a public official, not as governor, but as simply Dad. Brad and Elizabeth were his proudest contribution to the world with the help of Brenda. He was immensely proud of the people Brad and Elizabeth became. Kind, compassionate, grounded human beings who understood, just as he did, that what matters the most in life is how we treat others. Growing up, they shared their father with the world. Through campaigns, long days at the Capitol, the late night phone calls that never really ended. But they did so with grace, knowing that his public service was rooted in love. Love for his family, love for his community, love for the state of Illinois. Today, they carry forward his values, not just in words, but in the lives they lead. Please welcome Jim's children, Brad and Elizabeth.
My sister Elizabeth and I want to thank you all for being here. It's been very comforting to us as a family to know how well loved and respected Dad is. We know that people here have traveled from all over Illinois and the country to honor our father today, so thank you. Our children didn't grow up in Illinois, nor were they old enough to really remember his time, our dad's time as governor. So we're very grateful that they can all be here today to see how special their grandfather is and the impact he had on so many people. We also appreciate all the kind words about Dad's political success and achievements. Dad really cared about Illinois and was motivated by helping people. We respect that Dad knew what he wanted and he went after it. He's a role model for many, an example that you can achieve great things no matter your beginnings. But what we have observed and have been most touched by in recent years, and particularly since Dad's diagnosis in January, are his amazing friendships. To borrow a quote from the classic holiday movie, It's a Wonderful Life, "No man is a failure who has friends." And we believe by that measurement, Dad's friendships make him one of the richest men in Illinois.
Sometimes Dad could come off a little gruff, and he could be pretty stubborn and a little quirky at times, but at his core, he did care. Behind the scenes, Dad was really a generous and forgiving person. On more than one occasion, he would remind us that people are human and we all make mistakes. Dad loved his friends, and he has so many. So many of you made Dad's life richer, more joyful, and truly meaningful. Even some of his greatest political adversaries became good friends. To those of you who worked for Dad over the years, we cannot thank you enough. Brad, Mom, and I joke, and many of you do too, that once you work for Jim Edgar, you always work for Jim Edgar. But staff really are more like friends and family. So again, thank you.
Dad cared about the people of Illinois. He cared about his friends, his family. It was important to him to be a good father and a grandfather. He was really proud of his 5 grandchildren. He delighted in their personalities and their potential. We were grateful with the time we had with our dad and all the memories. When we knew our time was limited, we had a greater sense of appreciation, reflection, and tenderness. Dad was both a great father and a great friend.
But Dad's best friend was our mom, Brenda. Jim and Brenda Edgar were married for 58 years. They were a downstate Illinois love story. Mom's kindness and compassion, combined with Dad's determination and drive, made them a dynamic duo. Brenda Edgar, who might be described as a saint by some, provided consistent support, companionship, and honest feedback, which allowed for and enhanced Dad's success. Mom came out to Colorado for a visit last year, and every night, the two of them would talk on the phone before bed. It made me happy to see how they supported and cared for each other. Over the course of this past week, Mom has mentioned several times that her favorite campaign slogan was his first. One good man can make a difference. Our dad was a good man, a good son, brother, husband, father, grandfather, boss, mentor, leader, and friend. Looking out at all of you today, it is clear he has made a difference.
So Dad, we are sure you're watching from above, and we hope you know how much you are loved and how much we'll miss you. So, in true Jim Edgar style, we want to give you the last word.
I had a great ride. Maybe I'll get 2 or 3 years, maybe get 5 years. Maybe they'll find the silver bullet in that 3 or 5 years. I can't complain. I've got a great wife, great kids, great grandchildren. I mean, you couldn't have a better group. Good friends. Got to do what I wanted to do. I think I was pretty successful in it. If I don't get 10 more years like I'd hoped to get, at least I got probably 75 years, good time. But again, I just think I've had a good run. I worry about Brenda. I worry a little bit about the kids. Kids they're strong. They'll be able to handle it. But I would like to hang on and see some great grandchildren. Because we have two getting married this year. One got married last year. Brad and Elizabeth are just super kids. And their mother did a good job raising them. I mean, I was out running for office. But, they got a lot from their mother. And she was very tolerant of my passions. And though I think it's running out a little bit now on some of these horses. But, again, I had a good run.
Gently flowing, Illinois, Illinois, o'er thy prairies verdant growing, Illinois, Illinois, comes an echo on the breeze, rustling through the leafy trees, and its mellow tones are these. Illinois, Illinois, and its mellow tones are these. Illinois, not without thy wondrous story. Illinois, Illinois, can be writ the nation's glory. Illinois, Illinois, on the record of thy years, Abraham Lincoln's name appears, Grant and Logan and our tears. Illinois, Illinois, Grant and Logan and our tears. Illinois. By the rivers gently flowing, Illinois, Illinois, o'er thy prairies verdant growing, Illinois, Illinois, comes an echo on the breeze, rustling through the leafy trees, and its mellow tones are these. Illinois, Illinois, and its mellow tones are these. Illinois.
Immediately following the service, you are invited by the family to attend a reception at the Illinois State Library across from the Capitol, and the best way to enter is through the Monroe Street, if you will. As we prepare to depart, let us receive this benediction. Almighty God, from whom we come and to whom our spirits return, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. You are our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Grant us now your blessing and enable us so to put our trust in you as we move through life, and that our spirits may grow calm and our hearts may be comforted. Lift our eyes beyond the shadows of the earth as we go for this place. Help us love one another as you have loved us. Help us to serve one another as you have given yourself to us. Help us to see the light of eternity so that we may find grace and strength for this and every time of need. Go in God's peace. Amen.